Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Hi, I can see you all again. Another video podcast, another audio podcast with the one and only Craig Legans. I'm in the above average comedian. Oh man, that'd be beta. That'd be beta, fourth wall. I don't know what I'm saying. Craig, how are you?
Good evening, Dan. Glad we have the short bus around here for you.
Heck yeah.
I'm back here with my faithful tag team partner, Amber. We are here for your listening and viewing pleasure. I have what Dan has, and we are hopefully here to entertain you with the our musings and opinions of our favorite sport, that is professional wrestling.
It's like being back at school again on the short bus. That's a shoot, folks. Uh, as Craig said, welcome, Craig. I'm the above average comedian Dan Calchico. Another episode of HIAC Talk Radio. It is indeed episode 438. I don't know, mark your calendars or something. I don't know. We have from what I'm told, we have a shorter version of the wrestling historian this week. We have a little bit to talk about WWE this week. I do want to say this before we get started that you told me right before we hit the record button that wrestling related Peter Butter Falcon was actually very good. And I'm dying. I told you to stop. I'm dying to hear your explanation of why this is wrestling related because I'm going into this clueless.
Well, that's exactly how I went into the film, Dan, clueless. The film Peter Butter Falcon, the only thing I knew was that it starred Shia LaBeouf, but the lead actor was someone who had Down syndrome, who had never acted before.
Oh,
Director was a local man from Conshohocken, and this is a road picture. This young man who they met who had Down syndrome, his dream, ultimate dream, life goal, ambition is to be a professional wrestler. And through circumstance, he meets up with Shia LaBeouf. They form an unlikely friendship, and they travel together in search of his dream. And some of the best cameos in this movie, some of the best acting in this movie, is being done by Jake the Snake Roberts and Mick Foley.
no,
And God,
no. Go ahead. Finish what you're going to say. Please go. It's just your segment.
the peanut butter falcon is his wrestling name. That's where the title of the movie comes from. But
That's awesome.
yeah, Shia LaBeouf is great. The lead actor, first name is Zach, his last name escapes me. Please forgive me. I wrote about this on my Facebook page. I tweeted about it. The actual Twitter account for Peanut Butter Falcon got back to me and said thank you. This is you hear the term feel good movie thrown out a lot. This is it. If you just Google Peanut Butter Falcon, you're just going to see nothing but rave reviews, and all of that is well earned. I cried happy tears, I cried sad tears, I cried inspirational tears. It's just a really, really good movie. And if you're a wrestling fan, this really is a movie for you.
I think his name is Zach Gottsagen,
Yes,
like that.
got to say, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Of course, our connection with WMMR. They mentioned it. They mentioned it. They interviewed the writers and director for the movie this past week, and they mentioned Jake and Mick Foley, and they talked about wrestling like very little, not in a negative way. They just focused on the story without kind of spoiling that wrestling was involved that heavily, and they did say something about the cameos, but I'd forgotten that there was any wrestling in it at that time because they kind of, in a smart way, they just mentioned the main story and they didn't say, and it's a wrestling movie.
No, because it is not a wrestling movie. It's in the tradition of Rain Man. Um, what's in the Yeah, it's a road movie. It's a travel movie.
You
Midnight
mentioned
Midnight
Awakening.
Run,
Thinking too.
Awakening. Yeah, movies like that. There's two mismatched people, the unlikely duo, and they uh, spend time together on the road on this journey, and they learn more about each other and learn more about themselves. But as far as the filming goes, and they mentioned this on the Preston and Steve show, Shia LaBeouf. um, just took this so seriously. He went out of his way to to bond with Zach. But every Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday, they spend 3 hours watching wrestling. Yeah, and they did that for the entire month they had of shooting. So every Monday and Tuesday they would be watching wrestling, and they would get immersed in it. So I don't know if Zach was always a wrestling fan or what, or if this was just research for their roles in the movie. But they spent twice a twice a week, every week, while they're shooting this film, watching wrestling.
That's
And for
amazing.
anyone who ever wanted to be a wrestler or had a favorite wrestler growing up, then this movie will really resonate with you. And even if you don't know a damn thing about wrestling, which is half the people I went to in the audience, the producer was at the screening that I went to. Uh, that didn't know anything about wrestling. It's just a damn good film,
Yeah,
really.
I'm looking forward to see that now. I'm glad you said that because I would have forgotten about it, and then it would have come out, and I'm going, oh, I should have seen that.
Yeah, opens tomorrow nationwide. Check your local theaters. It's a wide release. It's not like 3,000 screens like a Marvel movie, but it's check your small independent local theaters for the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Should also check your local theaters for the Revival Tag Team Championship again, because that's also gone. So you're gonna have to look for it. Because our new tag team champions are Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, who just today has announced that he is engaged to Becky Lynch. So big week for him. Tag team champion engaged to one of the most beautiful and badass women on the planet.
First, Seth Rollins wins a tag team championship with the Monster, and then he proposes to the Man. So Seth Rollins is surrounded by lots of testosterone, apparently. This is, I was, first of all, I'm always upset when the Revival lose
Oh, sure.
because right when you finally give them the push they deserve and you give them, they're finally rewarded, rightfully so, as the Raw Tag Team Champions, you take it away. Now, this is obviously set up for a Seth versus Braun Strowman title match probably at the next pay-per-view. So I don't see them having a long reign as champions. Um, and I see the club regaining it only because I see the Revival. This brand split we now know is non-existent.
Yeah.
Since we see many wrestlers on both shows now, which is great. But the Revival over on SmackDown, I see them becoming the SmackDown Tag Team Champions because they've aligned themselves with Randy Orton. That's their three-man group is akin to the OC on Raw because WWE loves their factions, and we really haven't had a faction since the Shield and the Wyatt family went away. But now we have the OC on Raw, and they keep the Revival on SmackDown with Randy Orton. The Revival can be the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and you can see the New Day having to give up if Xavier Woods' leg is broken, having to give up the title or at least drop them to the Revival. So as much as I hated the Revival losing the Raw Tag Team Champions, Dan, I believe they will be SmackDown Tag Team Champions by the time we get to our next pay-per-view.
It's weird to talk about because it's like at this point it's like, well, they've been tag team champions a bunch, but it's like they've had such a disservice as far as how good they are and how many accolades they haven't had that at this point, I'm going to be honest. This is a terrible thing to say. Is I'll be disappointed if they're not tag team champs for at least a year. Them dropping the belts, not to say anything that their ability is not up to par. It's not their problem. It's not their fault. But they should have been tearing ass through the roster for at least a year or two at this point. I don't know. Yeah, it's almost at this point where it's like they're gonna get it, but by the time they lose it, I'm like, well, this is the way it's gonna be. It's weird to feel that way, but you get what I'm coming from. It's at this point, it's almost an
I d-
afterthought.
yeah, I definitely get it. If anyone deserves a year-long reign, it is the Revival. Um, they are the best tag team in both shows. I put them over the Usos, only because they stay out of trouble outside of the ring, and because their work ethic is second to none. And I think now with being aligned with Randy Orton is the best possible thing that could happen to this team because they've never had someone like that can make uh, make them great and give them the rub, as it were. We were talking about looking for challengers for the respective world champions. Seth has, excuse me, Braun Strowman, and now Kofi has Randy Orton. Now I could see uh, Randy and the Revival, or they call them Randy and the Jets, being having all the belts. As much as I don't want to see Kofi lose the belt, and especially not to Randy Orton, because Randy Orton does not need to be world champion again at any point for the rest of his career. Doesn't need it. But if you want to put over the Revival, having Orton as champion and the Revival as World Tag Team champions will do wonders for the Revival and for whatever, if they give them a name for their stable. But it's right now we're just looking for new challengers for the respective world champions because Seth and Kofi need that in order to establish their reign. And we know Kofi's got to lose sometime. Um, and not that his popularity hasn't dipped that much since WrestleMania. I believe if it had, they would have taken the belt off him sooner. But it's just done nothing but grow, and they've given him some really great wins. So, also potential challengers will be the winner of the King of the Ring. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say to add to what you're saying, I'm kind of hoping because, and this is not necessarily a bad thing because there's nothing wrong with Randy Orton in that way. There's times where I'm all about Randy, and there's most of the time where I'm like, okay. But maybe them having him still the crown prince of the WWE, I kind of want to say, just because of his name alone, but also how good he is, that their association with him will possibly, give them what I'm looking for, which is unstoppability, immutability.
Yes, good word. Yes, definitely good word. Yes.
They deserve it. They were so good. I cannot over as much as you and I have talked about tag teams coming out of NXT the last few years. Get Chris back on here. We talked. If you've been listening for a while, for 3 years, 3 years they were in NXT. Chris and I talked about how they almost stole the show every single time they were on a card, and after they left, that, oh yes, this is going to be it. Then you came into the picture. You came on the show, and you were on the same train. They're so good. There's no reason why that they will not steal the show. And then it's just maybe being with Randy Orton gives them that. Yeah, I think part of it's that on Twitter where people know more than the wrestlers and the people that are involved in the situation. Everybody knows better. That's why I like Harry's. I don't care. Like that. Like, whatever. You guys don't know the situation. Shut up. Harry's got less of a filter than I do, and I barely have one. But he has a better no filter where he's like, you don't know you have no idea. You're not there. Shut up. Why do you care so much? And he's right. I have no argument against that. But to see people, when their contract negotiations are coming up, what they think they know is going to happen, I'm assuming when their paycheck doesn't bounce, they don't care in that way. They're getting paid.
Exactly. They're getting paid well.
Yes, very well, very well, and they should. Again, they deserve it. But I'm hoping maybe the accolades will follow through after the association. I did pop. He came out with Randy Orton came out to help them. And they did the beatdown, and I was on board. I was like, all right, Yeah, I'm in the I care about Randy Orton mode now.
I was on board with that triple team maneuver on Woods. The flapjack into the RKO,
Such
devastating.
a good match, dude. It was such a good
Yeah,
match. Just a SmackDown main event. You say just a SmackDown main event, but that was a great one.
it was indeed.
Anybody
And
who ever gets tired of the New Day and then take it right back over, I'm sorry.
no, no,
But I do people say, oh, the New Day, and then they get in a ring and actually wrestle, and it negates all of your I'm tired New Day thoughts. But go ahead.
yeah, and the New Day is there for a reason, and I've been one of those outspoken critics that we don't need more New Day or New Day as champions again. The New Day in is in a similar position to Randy Orton. They can elevate other teams, and
Exactly.
beating the New Day is a big deal. So if the New Day has to win more championships in order to make other teams great and other teams champions, in this case the Revival, then by all means put the belt on New Day, only to have them get devastated by the Revival in a convincing, maybe a squash like win to put them over even more than and they should be, and that's what needs to be done. Probably the most intriguing thing that's happened in the last 2 days, Dan, because they're really pushing it hard down our throats, is the King of the Ring, because they're bringing it back, and they have to mention every single person who's ever won King of the Ring and try to make us believe now that the King of the Ring is the end all be all in terms of tournaments and making careers. And even though they swept this same tournament under the rug for the past 4 years and made it seem like nothing, but now because past King of the Rings just won King of the Ring and nothing happened to their careers, like Owen, I mean Mabel, Billy
Triple H.
Gunn have
Mhm.
also been King of the Rings.
Yeah.
So, uh, but of course we'll invoke the names of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart and Kurt Angle,
Triple
and
H.
Harley Race, yeah, and Triple H, yeah, because they're the ones. But now they want us to believe that it's a career making win, and if they are going to treat it as such, the name Drew McIntyre has been thrown up over and over again. Uh, and obviously, if anyone deserves it, other than say a Cesaro or Samoa Joe, it would be a Drew McIntyre. As long as he's not Shane McMahon's lapdog anymore, I'm all for anything that moves him up on the card, because a Seth Rollins Drew McIntyre feud would be money.
I will say this: past the wrestler, let me phrase that. Past the performer's ability, it's in the WWE's hands to make this mean something, like it had been in the past. The names that we evoked for and against being a good decision, and the other way around. Like one of the names I think of, Sheamus, and then what? That's their call, and there's nothing you can tell me that convinced me that Sheamus being Sheamus was the reason why that kind of just didn't go anywhere, right? If Drew McIntyre at this point, Drew McIntyre has been to the top, back down to the bottom, worked his way back to the top of the Indies where he was the best wrestler, not signed with the WWE at one point, back to NXT, back on the main roster. At this point, just a hypothetical, if he wins King of the Ring and that falls flat, I'm not blaming him again. I don't know
Oh
how many
no,
times he gives you blood before you're like, well, maybe we should patch this wound up.
no, Drew McIntyre needs to be a world champion at some point. And if King of the Ring is his first step to doing that, then it needs to be done. Okay, he's gone too far, too long. I mean, he was in the first Money in the Bank match ever, and that was 9 years ago. And he's right back in the main event picture. Drew McIntyre is a world champion. He should be a world champion. He would be an effective money-making heel world champion. He doesn't have to be at a Brock Lesnar unstoppable type level, but he can definitely be a money-making heel world champion who can work against anybody and make it a good match. We've seen that in NXT. We've seen that in the Indies. He's paid his dues. He's plied his craft. He's done exactly what you said, Dan. He went all the way to the bottom, came all the way back up top. This was a man who was in a three-man band with Heath Slater as the leader, folks. He was a lackey to Heath Slater.
That's true. Yeah. So is
Now look
Jinder
at him.
Mahal.
So was Jinder Mahal.
Champion.
Yes. And Jinder Mahal is a former world champion. They were all in a three-man band. Yes. So as long as they're making us believe that the King of the Ring means something, make it mean something. Have Drew win, or Samoa Joe win, and have the winner. They even announced what have the winner get a future world title shot against whomever the champion is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see why not. Hopefully that'll work out.
Yeah.
nice.
Another thing that was announced. Did you see that NXT is coming to USA?
Why are you doing all the segues?
I'm sorry. I saw you were busy, and
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. No, I like it. The King of the Ring one was brilliant, and that was even brilliant. But I had to call that one out. I'm like, wait a second. I was ready. No. Yes, as we are dubbing it, the beginning of the Wednesday Night War. Here we go. NXT is going to 2 hours in September, and it's going to the USA Network. It's going to go magically a month before AEW starts in October on Wednesdays on TNT. Seen a lot of discussions the last couple days. One of the ones that stuck out to me was people like, why is WWE going against AEW? Why does it need to be? Forgetting who shot the fired the first shots, which was AEW. For those who, let me just be clear. I want everything to work. You know how I feel about WCW not being around anymore and how bitter I am about that. Still, Harry likes to remind me all the time. Let's not forget what happened when a war happened last time. Vince, for all his faults, you can pick out all the crappy things he's done as a promoter, but he knows how to crawl, scratch, and murder his way, sometimes figuratively and literally, to stay on top. That's why they are the way they are. We can argue about ratings and attendance, but I look at the stock market numbers and go, The other thing that also, just a side note, it's very funny. I tweeted about this. What people tolerate from other promoters that do the same thing that aren't named Vince McMahon. It's very interesting. Watch what you tweet, guys. But there's a reason they top, and there is also a reason why the Monday Night Wars ended the way it did. And I hope I'm wrong. Get your thoughts on this in a second. I see some of the same things happening on the other side. I want it to work in the worst way, but you call down the thunder and you'll get it. And I'm not a pro WWE guy. I'm a pro wrestling, no pun intended, guy. I want all of this to be on TV. I want people who don't like the WWE to be able to go watch something else and vice versa. But you're messing with a guy that's killed everybody who has come before him. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's gonna be fun to watch for a little while, my friend.
The winner in all this is us, because we finally have what we've been craving for so many years: variety. Variety, because we have NXT, we will have AEW. We're going to be casual wrestling fans or mainstream wrestling fans are going to be introduced to a whole crop of people they've never seen before, they've never heard of before. New stars will emerge. People will finally get to see the MJP we've been talking about.
MJF.
I'm sorry, MJF. I apologize.
Okay. I was like, who?
that we've been talking about. The stars from NXT that need the national spotlight more than anything, because you can see what real wrestling is, when, especially fans of this podcast that hear me go on and on and on about how a great an NXT pay-per-view is compared to a WWE pay-per-view, and how the wrestlers in NXT are tagged right currently the Street Profits on the NXT is the best tag team on in any wrestling organization, WWE or no, but all that comes from NXT. So this is the best possible news for wrestling fans in general, because I echo everything you said, Dan. This will give you something. If you don't like WWE, you have something else to watch. If you don't like they do indie stuff, you always have WWE. Now you have NXT. Uh, this is as close to an embarrassment of riches as we're ever going to get in today's landscape of professional wrestling. I mean, I when I do the wrestling historian segment, I'm culling from information that on one Saturday morning, I watched 8 different wrestling organizations in one day, and it was nothing. Georgia Championship Wrestling, Florida Championship Wrestling, Mid Atlantic, World Class, NWA, AWA, and WWF, Pacific Northwest, Southwest Heavyweight Championship Wrestling from Texas. I mean, this is all in one day, and it's all going on simultaneously across the world. Yeah, this is as close as we're going to get right now with the national uh, television broadcast all over the world, and you're going to be introduced to a whole bunch of new wrestlers, new angles, new superstars, and people you say, "Hey, I wonder what happened to Cody Rhodes." Oh, there he is. Oh man, Jericho's gained a lot of weight. Look at that.
Oh, stop
You
it.
get that. Yeah.
Oh, Craig, that made me laugh. No, it's just you know who doesn't make it? Twitter makes this not fun. I'm so glad Twitter was not around during the Monday Night Wars. I would have stopped watching a long time ago, man.
Oh my God, yes.
Everybody
Yeah, I
knows
mean,
better.
mhm. I
Go
mean, it was
ahead.
the worst kept. It was bad then. I mean, it was there was no social media then, back in the Monday Night Wars, but it's still enough people knew. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Chris Jericho's debut in the WWE, my favorite debut of any new wrestler of all time. But there were scores of signs in Kansas City that had Jericho on it because they already knew. And this was 1999, years before any social media, and people knew. So if there was Twitter back then and there was Instagram stories, yeah, this whole thing would have changed. It's like what Charles Barkley said. Charles, what if you had Twitter back in the back when you were playing? He said, "Oh, I would have been fired by second day." And he means the second day after he had a Twitter account.
Yeah, yeah, I don't doubt it. Oh man, yeah, we're just gonna have to ignore those people. I'm gonna enjoy the two companies for what they are. Speaking of wrestling historians, sir, I think it is about time we do that. The floor is forever yours.
Thank you, Daniel. As I recreate the special effect you're seeing on your screen right now. As we go back into the past, as I de-age before you, we'll go back to a wonderful time when territories existed, where titles were actually called belts, and when sports entertainment was professional wrestling. I guess it's going to be short today. It was not much happening apparently in the world of professional wrestling, but some significant things happened. We're going to back August 16th, 1960. Dan Vern Gagne becomes the AWA champion. August 16th, 1960, for the first of his record 10 times.
Oh wow.
Vern Gagne was the AWA champion 10 times, and when he uh, gained his first AWA championship August 16th, 1960. But he got it in a strange way, Dan. Pat O'Connor was the reigning, defending, undisputed NWA heavyweight champion at the time, and he was recognized as the first AWA champion. But he was told by the AWA board of directors uh, in May of 1960 that he had 90 days to defend his newly awarded AWA championship against Vern Gagne. Pat O'Connor never did it. He never defended against Vern Gagne, and because of that, he was stripped.
Wow.
When he was stripped, Vern Gagne became the AWA heavyweight champion. So
You know what's amazing? We talk about he was the 10-time AWA champion, and people always, I call it that fake woke stuff where people used to just be like, Gagne was a great champion, not a great promoter towards the end, but was a great champion. People were like, he was only champion, he wasn't that good. No, he was that good.
yeah,
But then we look at it compared to even in the 80s with Hogan and other champions that he only had it 10 times and he had the book.
yeah. And with an asterisk, because of those 10 times, he only won it in the ring 7. The last 2 times it was awarded to him, or he retired, and one time it was just given to him another time. Just like his first one, his first reign and his last reign, the title was given to him. He actually won it in the ring only 7 times. But yeah, that's what happens when you have the book. But Pat O'Connor was the NWA champion. He was rewarded the first AWA title, but he was given 90 days to defend it against Vern Gagne or be stripped. And he never wrestled Gagne. He was stripped, and Vern Gagne won his first of 10 AWA championships, August 16th, 1960. That same date, August 16th, 2003, right here in Philadelphia, Just Incredible defeated Terry Funk for the 3PW Heavyweight Championship. But he won it at the Electric Factory, Dan.
There. I was at that show.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
First of all, we need to bring that back. Wrestling at the Electric Factory. I don't know what is it called now? It's the Electric Factory.
The Franklin, the Franklin something house or whatever.
I don't know what it's called, and I refuse to call it anything but the Electric Factory. I'm going to be that snooty about a name of a venue. But something that doesn't happen anymore is wrestling events at the Electric Factory, and that was different because for those who don't know, the Electric Factory is literally an old converted factory that is as high as a factory would be, an industrial building in Philadelphia. So it's real old, real tall, real hollow. And they basically, I think in the 60s it was converted, and then it closed for a little bit and then reopened in the 80s or something. I don't remember the dates on that. And it holds about 1,000, maybe that much. But you have go ahead.
1,200. That's it.
It is 1,200. Okay, I was pretty sure it was above 1,000, but I didn't want to be that guy. I was like, yeah, it's 1,000. It's like 900, Dan. So the you got the flat floor, and you can put the chairs or little foldable grandstand in there. You have the stage, and then you have a balcony. And that atmosphere, I don't want to compare it to, I've never been to the Elks Lodge for ECW, but I've been to the ECW arena for ECW and other events. And the closest I've ever come to wrestling chaos was the Electric Factory, because it's just, you're on top of everybody. You got people above you, and it's hot and sweaty. So
yeah,
it's a hardcore building for wrestling. And I don't think that place has been used enough for that.
No, not at all, and that's why I brought it up, because it was Terry Funk wrestling in 2003. First of all, in losing a championship. This is the man who won the NWA title in 1975, folks. Okay, let me just stress that. But in 2003, he lost the 3PW title to to Just Incredible at the Electric Factory.
May I add something real quick? Do you know why they moved the Electric Factory, which I just learned by looking this up, or I had forgotten?
What?
Rob Black signed an exclusive lease deal for XPW at the ECW arena, throwing everybody else out of there that was wrestling.
That's right.
And we all know how that went.
Yeah. Wow.
We'll talk about that on another podcast.
Yeah, that's an HNP. That's a whole nother podcast. Yeah. The only other thing that happened of consequence this week, and I uh, made it apparent on I first posted it on our HIAC Talk Radio Twitter page. I posted it on several NWA fan sites. This was a big day in my life. August 21st, 1979. It was 40 years ago yesterday when an American dream was realized. Dusty Rhodes finally defeated the now late great Harley Race to win his first NWA Heavyweight Championship. This was the biggest thing to me. Dusty Rhodes was my favorite wrestler of all time, even back in 1979. Because championship wrestling from Florida had been taken off, I couldn't see him. I only had to go by the After magazines to find out how he was doing, what championships he won, where he was wrestling, who he wrestled against. But I know his dogged pursuit of the NWA title never went away. He, I mentioned Terry Funk before. The Terry Funk Dusty Rhodes wars were legend. Wait for it, Derry. Even back in the 70s, but Dusty could never beat Terry Funk for the NWA title. Once Harley Race won it, their matches became even more intense. But Dusty could never get over the hump. He'd be disqualified, or Race would get disqualified, or something else. And Dusty came here to WWF, tried to beat superstar Billy Graham. That didn't work. They had tremendous sold out shows in Madison Square Garden. But it didn't matter who the champion was, Dusty could never win the belt. And the American Dream would go down like a Charles Barkley, who I also mentioned as one of the greatest wrestlers to never win the championship. All that changed August 21st, 1979, Fort Hesterly Armory in Tampa, Florida. Harley Race went for the patented diving headbutt, and Dusty had the presence of mind to put up the bionic elbow, and Harley landed right on Rhodes' elbow, knocked himself out. Two elbows later, and a big elbow smash from the corner, running elbow smash. And 3 seconds later, Dusty Rhodes had realized his American dream. I remember clipping the pictures out of Pro Wrestling Illustrated and taping them to my bedroom wall right above my bed. So that was the first thing I saw when I woke up in the morning. Dusty Rhodes wins the NWA Championship. And just like I said with Harley Race, Dan, because he was so synonymous with the NWA belt, it wasn't real to me that Dusty had actually won, that Dusty was actually champion until I saw him wear the belt. The belt that was Harley Race's, that symbolizes that you were the best wrestler on God's green earth. So when I saw Dusty with that belt, that's when I knew it was real. Even though these were black and white photos taken by Bill Apter with Dusty with the belt, it was real to me, damn it.
That same belt will be returning to your airwaves live from Atlanta this October. NWA TV, like the good old days. You guys always talk about, not you guys, I'm talking about generally. You guys, you old bastards, talking about you want your old wrestling back. Here's your chance. NWA TV. Yeah, WWE is not for you. Totally understand. AEW is not going to be for you. Totally understand. NWA is going to give it a shot. So NXT, NWA, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Pick it now. Pick who you're going to watch now. It's a lot of TV, brother.
Yes.
Good, Craig. Close this one out.
And that's the best way to end it. 40 years ago yesterday, the first championship win for Dusty Rhodes over the man who will always be synonymous with the NWA and synonymous with being a world champion. You know, we talked about Randy Orton earlier. He's won the title, 12 times? John Cena's won it 16 times. Triple H has won it 10 times. This guy's won it. There's so many wrestlers that have won world championship, won more world championships than Harley Race. Yeah, Edge has more world championships than Harley Race. Does anyone, any sane person, even think that Edge is better than Harley Race? That
No,
Randy Orton could carry Harley Race's jock
no,
on his best day?
no.
No. So the number of world championships does not make anyone. Put it this way: 16-time world champion doesn't make you a great champion any more than someone being married 8 times makes you a great partner.
No, no,
Uh,
no. No, it does not.
it's it's the person holding it. And 40 years ago, yesterday, Dusty Rhodes beat the man that will always be synonymous with the NWA title, and you had to be a hell of a man to beat me. And Dusty Rhodes was, and Dusty Rhodes did, August 21st, 1979.
And I think with that, we should close this one out. Craig, where can the people follow you on Twitter, social media, all that good stuff?
Well, all the good and the bad stuff, Dan. Folks can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Lagons, CraigLiGeons.
Follow me on Twitter, the above average comedian, at DanLaw83. The HIAC Talk Radio Network is at HIAC Talk Radio on all social media platforms. The Stadium Journey podcast, the Obey the Puck podcast, the Pro Wrestling podcast with yours truly, plural, is all there. Just search HIAC Talk Radio. Currently homed on the VOC Nation Radio Network, the BradyHicks.com. Our site, I've been told, will be live in September. But please follow us on social media, like, share, subscribe. Just press play, as one would say, and that one would be me. For Craig Lagons, I am Dan Kalchika. We will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. See you next time. Avoid legal snags by telling people they're being recorded. Hey, Craig.
Yo.
What do you?